Now that we have our bird pieces finished, we've got our metal cut out and attached to our fiber layers. So you can see there's a lot of different layers and textures going on here. It's time to attach it to our background that we finished. Now when you go to start putting your bird together, you're going to put down one wing first, then your bird body, and then your last wing. Now it's going to take a little bit of playing with this to make sure that you get it right, because you don't want to put your bird down like this, because this wing is now coming out of the bird's head. So try to keep in mind that the bird has shoulders where his wings would come out, imaginary shoulders. So you want to make sure that this back wing is attached where it should be, and the front wing is attached where it seems like it should be, so that you get a very symmetrical bird that doesn't have anything funky going on. And I would recommend pulling this wing in just a little bit so that this one is sticking out just a hair more, and that gives the illusion of the depth, that wing is farther away than this one. It doesn't have to be a lot, just enough to give it that depth. And then your bird can turn out very cute. So once you have your placements set out, then you can go in. I would recommend gluing on the top wing with your E6000. Glue it on where you think it should go. Just add lots of glue. Don't be shy with your glue here. And put it down. And then you can flip this up and put lots of glue on this wing. Don't be shy with your glue. Give it plenty to stick. And put that down. Then you can flip the entire bird over and add glue. And if you've got some places where your back piece of fabric's not really stuck down to the front pieces, just add some glue to it. This is a very forgiving, you can't really mess this up, so just keep adding your glue, add lots of glue, so that everything can get stuck down very nicely where it needs to be. Don't try to stick to your fingers, just keep pushing it down, and lots of glue. E6000 is your friend on this project. And then we're ready to stick our bird down to the canvas. And really just push it down really well. And really kind of work it in, pushing down. That makes all that glue squish through all those layers that you've made and really connect to everything below. So, now we have that portion. The next thing I like to do, once all those layers are glued on, is to really bling this project up. You can see in my original that I added a lot of rhinestone trim and a little crown, and it really kind of makes the playful style of this piece really kind of pop and makes it interesting, as well as drawing the eye to the light that's created. So we're going to, first of all, you can get trim like this at most fabric stores. It's kind of expensive because it is connected with thread. It's not plastic. It's a good quality rhinestone trim. And if you don't want to spend a lot of money on it, you don't have to. You can use any kind of trim you want. You could use, you could even use you know, some old lace and crochet trim, that kind of thing, and maybe just add a few small pieces of rhinestone jewelry, or, you know, anything that you've got, just something sparkly that kind of catches the light. You could even use glitter. Glass glitter works really great. There's a lot of different options. Now, this stuff I didn't actually pay that much for. I found an old dress at a thrift store that had this trim going all the way up one side and down the other. And the dress was on clearance for $5, so I got yards and yards and yards of this trim that was actually this wide, and then I just cut it down. And it was a great price. So that's another option. You want some extra sparkly things to go into your artwork. You can always check out the vintage clothing rack at your local thrift store. Sometimes you get lucky and find really cool rhinestone buttons, and it's perfectly worth the price of the garment just to get the buttons or the trim out of it. So there's another little thing you can look for. So what I'm going to do is just put this piece of trim at the bottom, and you can see it's too long, but because this trim is made with thread, I can just cut it apart to how long I want it. So once I've got that down, I'm going to add my E6000 again. I'm just going to flip my trim up above where I want it so that I know exactly where my glue goes. I'm just going to put the glue directly on the board. Plenty of glue. And then I'm going to flip my trim over and place it down. And E6000 is such a good glue because it is, once it dries, it's very clear and it's pliable. It's you know, it's got some movement to it once it's clear. It's almost rubber-like. So if there's, you know, any kind of jarring, so like if you were to use super glue holds a lot of things, but if something gets jarred and it's been on there for a long time, it has a tendency to break off because it's so brittle once it dries, if it's not the right surfaces. Like if you're attaching metal to metal. E6000 will hold pretty much anything you glue, no matter what temperature, no matter, you know, how much use it's getting. It is an amazing glue, and it stinks like the dickens. Although they've just come out with a product that is odorless, so I'm eager to try that. But E6000 is a great glue for mixed media because it will glue anything. It'll glue rusty metal. It'll glue rhinestones to paint. It'll glue fabric. It does everything. It's a great glue to have. So if you don't have any of it, get the E6000. And so now that I have that glued on, I really like to give my birds a crown just because it's whimsical and it makes the piece fun. You can use crowns. For this one, I took a piece of this trim, of the rhinestone trim, and then I just cut the different shapes out of it so that it would make it look like a crown. This bird's quite a bit bigger, and I could do that too, but I really wanted to use this old rhinestone piece on something. Well, when I put it on the bird, it's just large. It's too big. So if you have something you really want to use and it just seems too much, too big, you can stop for a minute and look at the piece and decide, is there something I can do to make this work? I really like it. What can I do? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these ends off, and I'm going to cut one of these rhinestones out so that this end meets up here, making this a little bit smaller and a little bit more round like a crown. So I'm going to try that. So I have my wire cutters, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut these ends off very carefully. They just snip snip right off in between because they're connected with metal. I'm just going to snip between the rhinestones. And when you're doing this, you should always wear eye protection, just in case a piece of metal or glass slips off. You don't want it going in your eye, so eyesight's very important. Wear your eyeglasses, or your safety glasses. So then I'm just cutting this, saving that rhinestone for another occasion. So I've cut that one rhinestone out, and now when I join this, it makes this crown a little bit smaller than that other side, and it makes it a little bit more shaped like a crown. So I think this is going to work out pretty well. So I'm cutting out this one rhinestone, if it'll let me. Take your time. Sometimes your wire cutters can squeeze a rhinestone and start to break it, so if you hear crunching, that's not a good sound, and you should reposition your wire cutters. So now this is what I'm left with, but these ends, if I bring them together, will make a very cute crown that I can glue together with E6000. So the only other thing I'm going to address before I do that is one of my rhinestones is missing from this place here. So the thing is that I already have other rhinestones. So all I need to do is open this up, get a little pair of pliers, and open these up, and get that rhinestone out of there, and then I can reset it in that space. I need a different, maybe my wire cutters will be better. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work to get what you want, but you can get there. Just open that up, and that rhinestone should fall right out. I'm going to open the prongs on this one up just a little. I want to be careful that I don't break them. And my rhinestone should slide right in there. And then I can bend those prongs back over. You can use my thumbnail to push them over, or you can use a pair of pliers. Whatever you want to do. And that has a new rhinestone in it. Now I'm ready to glue this on. Put some glue down first. I want to move my stones up where I need them to be. Oops. Looks like I didn't get my rhinestone in there very good. I'm going to try to glue that in, I guess. Normally that works, but it didn't work this time. I think I didn't get one of my prongs down good, so I'll just take some of my E6000 and put that back in later. I'm going to let that dry, and and I can come back. If you've put on too much E6000, what you can do is just go through and start scraping it off. Especially if you have a rusty surface, you want to rough that back up so that it's not so shiny. Just take a little bit off at a time, and you can kind of scrape up that rust, and it kind of blends with that glue and makes it kind of rough again. So a little bit at a time. And you just let that dry. Let your rhinestones at the bottom dry. And then we can go on to our next step.